Hi there, this is Miss Niebling again. Today we're going to learn another smiley face trick. And remember, smiley face tricks are those tools that good writers use in their writing to make their readers smile. Now you've already learned two types of smiley face tricks, figurative language and magic 3 sentences. Underneath your magic 3 notes in your spiral, I want you to continue taking notes on the third type of smiley face trick, specific details for effect. Make sure you write that title in the next section of your spiral and copy down this whole slide into your notes so that you have it in a safe place. Specific details for effect are vivid and specific sensory details. Now, when I say sensory details, I mean using the 5 senses to create an image. The 5 senses are those things that you can describe by what you see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. When we're talking specific details, we mean sensory details. Sometimes we use details that are too vague or too general. We don't really have a good grip on what the writer means sometimes. So when we write, we want to make sure that we choose specific sensory details when we describe things. Good writers know that in order to create word pictures to help their readers visualize, we need to use those specific details. Now, the 5 senses are fantastic for making connections with other people. It's something that we share in common. We all use our 5 senses every single day. So even if you don't know somebody, you definitely share your senses in common. We've all smelled a disgusting skunk. We've all tasted something sweet. Okay, those are the things that tie us together as humans. So as writers, we use that by describing things using the 5 senses. That makes a very powerful connection in an immediate way. So let's look at some examples of specific details for effect. The first sentence here uses one of the 5 senses. Try and figure out which one it is as I read it. We were in her ancient Jeep that had lost its shock absorbers sometime during the Vietnam War. Now that's a funny way of saying that Jeep ride was pretty bumpy. So Joan Bauer was using the sense of touch to help us imagine that. Here's another example. And on his feet, instead of the standard orphanage clodhoppers, were a pair of boots. Scuffed and dusty boots, certainly, but with a style about them that had nothing to do with living in an orphanage, or for that matter, anywhere else in downtown Harristown. This author chose 2 specific words. These are the words that help us to imagine those boots. When she uses the word scuffed, we're able to see them in our mind's eye. When she uses the word dusty, it's almost like I can smell the dust, and that immediately connects me with this character, whoever he is. So using 1 or 2 of the 5 senses is pretty good. However, when you're really doing specific details for effect, you need to use 3 of the 5 senses in your description. So I want you to choose one of the following examples to write down into your spiral underneath your definition. These next examples use 3 of the 5 senses. I started shivering. I could taste blood in my mouth and smell it in my nose. It had a cold metallic taste that made my stomach twist inside out. I tore away from Peter's grip and ran back to the rail, emptying my stomach over the side. Alright, now this is a pretty powerful description because Karen Hesse uses 3 of the 5 senses in her description. We're able to smell the blood immediately. We can imagine that metallic taste that she describes. And finally, unfortunately, we're also able to imagine that we can hear somebody vomiting over the side of a boat. So sorry, I know that's gross, but it's also fantastic writing. Let's look at another example. The smell rushed at me as soon as I stepped inside. The hallway had that "Mama don't cook nothing without onions" smell. It lingered on top of musty cigarette smoke, the kind that never quite comes out of the carpet, no matter how long ago the smoker left. My arms rippled with goosebumps. I'd been here before. Once again, this author used 3 different 5 senses to describe this to us. We can imagine the smell and the taste of that onions. We can also imagine that we feel our arms rippling with goosebumps. This is a great description. 3 of the 5 senses. Last example. The sun was baking my skin. Bugs were feasting on the back of my neck. My lips cracked. Sweat poured down my forehead, stinging my eyes. I could see blisters beginning to form on my palms. Dirt was caked under my fingernails. My shoulders were on fire from carrying equipment. My legs ached from kneeling on the ground. I was lightheaded, dizzy, weak from exertion. I was starting to stink. I cursed my fate. Now, Gary Paulson here did something fantastic. He was able to show us details. Now, even though he did sometimes say things like, I could see, one thing that he's good at here is that he's showing us details. He didn't have to say that he saw dirt caked under fingernails. He showed it to us, and we didn't even need to be told it. We don't have to read, my shoulders felt like they were on fire. By just writing, my shoulders were on fire, he showed it to us instead of told us. So just remember that as writers, we want to show our details, not tell. Gary Paulson used 2 examples of that sense of touch. He used 2 examples of that sense of sight. And he also told me about his smell. Gotta love that sweaty stink. Next, I want you to practice writing your own example of specific details for effect. So, underneath the example that you just wrote from the slides, I want you to take a stab at this. Choose either a barnyard or a city to describe. Then, I want you to write multiple sentences that use at least 3 of the 5 senses to describe either what a barnyard or a city sounds like, what it looks like, what it smells like, what it would feel like, and finally, what would you taste? Choose one of those 2 options. I am excited to hear your examples in class tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.